everyone's different.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of work in Sweden and Denmark, as you know, and different countries around the world. I've done a lot of work in LA and New York. There are certain writers who I will work with, and they have a formula.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, we need to go X amount of seconds into this. I need the chorus to come in at this moment. I need the lift to be like this. No, that lyric needs to specifically talk to the audience. Like it has to be, I want you, or something like that. And they actually are very scientific about that in a very pop approach. That's not really the way that I write, but if I'm working and I've been set up to write with them, sometimes I'll jump on their cruise ship for that, for that day and try to work with them. There's no right, there's no wrong. And there are a lot of people who, they'll be like, they want this kind of song, they want this tempo, they want this kind of drum beat. I know people who will go and listen to drum beats of other songs.
Oh yeah,
And
I've
then-
done it before
Yeah.
to get that feel.
Exactly. And everybody is different. My attitude is there's no right and wrong, just please do not rip someone off or steal anything.
Yeah, please don't steal.
Yeah.
Don't do the rip off, don't steal.
Exactly. So to me, there's no one way to write. I mean, I tend to sit up at night with my acoustic guitar, sit at the piano, and what used to be a Sony Walkman and a bunch of cassettes that are now in plastic containers in my closet. They're on my iPhone now, and just come up with different ideas every week. So I know, like last week, I was in London working with 3 different bands. Well, I know their songs. I know their vibe. So I spent pretty much every night for weeks leading up to it, even if it's half an hour, not putting pressure on myself, but just playing and just trying to put myself in their shoes and just trying to think what they might want to sing while also being myself, and know that I have some ideas waiting for them. If the band comes in and they're like, Jeff, I really want to work on this, then glory, hallelujah, it's something they're interested in. And now my job is to get them to the finish line and make sure they're happy. There are a lot of other bands who are like, what do you got? And I know if it's an amazing artist who's successful, if I come in with the right idea, I just gave myself much better odds of getting on a record.
Yeah.
So, what I try to tell people is, let's say you were a CEO of a company and you were going to make a speech to your company and you had a shot, you had 15 minutes to speak. Would you go up there and wing it?
Right.
No.
Yes.
This is a business. This is the music business. It's not the music fraternity
Camera.
party.
This is the music business. Right.
It's not the music fraternity
Yes.
party.
No.
It turns into the music fraternity party every now and then.
Sometimes, and it's fun.
And I have enjoyed those fraternity party aspects of it. But at the end of the day, it is a business.
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes because it's such a personal industry. And think about this, the songs that you write, they're very personal to you. Nobody wants to hear like, oh, they're not good. Nobody wants to hear no. Nobody wants to hear like, so-and-so doesn't want to write with you because they don't think you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, but the bottom line is, sometimes people are actually dicks. But for the most part, it is a business.
Yep.
And, it is what it is. There are times when, for a while, I got frustrated when I knew I had like a song in the top 5 or the top 20 back to back, and I wanted to write with someone, and their publisher's like, we don't want to write with you. And then I see some guy or girl who's never had a cut getting in the room with them, and I'm like, what the,
Yeah.
And I used to get a little frustrated, and then I realized, what? There are so many other people I could work with. No worries, man. So, yeah, it is what it is. The bottom line is, I think, and you said it before, find people who believe in you and find your team. And, and I wish that I had, I started my own company, as you know, years ago. And, sometimes I look back, everyone's like, you should have no regrets. I'm like, well, that's bullshit. There's always decisions we made that I'm like, shit, I probably should have done that. You got to move on from it.
Right.
But, if I had known what I know now, and I never really had the super options to do this because of my BMI background, but I might have done a publishing deal. Like, I also thought I was too old. I thought I was like, I'm already 38. You know, I can't do 3 years of giving up on my publishing. And
Right.
bullshit. You know, I mean, I could have done that, and maybe they would have hooked me up and put me into some circles that I didn't know, instead of me hustling and doing it myself and maybe having a champion.
Yes.
And looking back now, I think there's a glass ceiling on what you can do for yourself. And I mean, and
Yes.
I've done fine.
Yeah.
But sometimes I do wonder, had I had a manager or had I had a publisher ever, how it would have gone. And I think that's a justifiable question, because it's a lot harder to sell yourself. Having said that, I honestly think a bad manager is worse than no manager.
1,000%. And I think I've had a bad manager before. You've had a bad
Well, it wasn't
manager
me.
before. No, it wasn't you. I think a lot of people have, and it's
Yeah.
the worst, and it can really hinder your career. It's knowing, again, back to knowing your people.
And that's why one thing that I've also learned is it's okay to dance with someone
Yeah.
before you invite them home.
It's a wise
I don't know
thing.
if that was a good analogy, but that was off the cuff. But I'm not saying I just dance and then take people home, but still.
No, we get the
Okay,
analogy.
thanks.
You're first class.
Thank you.
Because you get called onto so many projects, not just as a songwriter, but also to produce, what is that process like for you? Like from conception, and a band calls and says, Jeff, we want you to write on this, but we also want you to produce. And is there sort of a process that you follow? Because this is becoming a thing where you're a writer-producer.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that especially are up and coming that go, God, how does he keep doing it? How does he keep doing it?
I mean, how do you stay fresh? Or
Yeah,
how do you...
and your process, I think, and how
Dysfunctional relationships, Hannah. No. Joke.
They're the best songwriting fuel.
Joke.
We're
I think-
advocates of therapy.
And I honestly think that you do get to a point where you don't need to be in have drama in your life to write. I mean, like,
Big
I know
time.
I know I don't.
Yeah.
You know, looking back in my 20s before I was a professional writer, yeah, it was some of the songs driven by crushes and by relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, and even throughout my life, yes. No, not gonna lie, 'cause I do tend to try to write from something that means something to me.
Sure.
And especially when I'm working with an artist. Mm-hmm. You know, like, if I'm writing with an artist, one of the first things I say is, I want this song to be something you want to sing.
Big time.
Let's write something you want to sing about. If not, let's just go to lunch. I really have no interest in writing something just for the sake of it that you don't ever want to play, or you don't ever want to show anyone, or you don't really... I honestly think that when you write from an honest place, people connect with it more.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but I will say this. When I say an honest place and from a true... It doesn't have to be a song. 'Cause I'll never forget a pretty major band said to me, because I used to really try to be like, let's write something that either makes someone cry or makes someone think, you know, and I used to really like labor over every word,
Oh, yeah.
as you know. And this major artist said to me, we were working on something that got a little bit kind of, I don't want to say goofy, but it got a little bit light.
Yeah.
And he could see that it was kind of paining me a little bit. Like I was, like he could tell that it was losing me a little bit. And it was like, you know, and I was going along because that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I was still trying to make sure the lyrics were clever. And when the other person in the band went for a bathroom break, he looked at me and he goes, look, buddy, he goes, here's the deal. Some songs change people's lives.
Yeah.
No doubt. And that's amazing. And when you hit one of those, it can change your life too.
Yeah.
He goes, but there are certain songs that change people's lives for 3 minutes.
Wow.
And that's okay also.
Yeah.
He goes, might get someone just moving their shoulders. You might get someone to smile who's having a bad day. You might get someone who's screaming at the top of their lungs in a bar, not even knowing what the hell they're saying,
Yes.
but having fun. And he goes, Jeff, some songs change people's lives. Some change them for 3 minutes. You're allowed to write both.
What a freeing thing to say.
And it really,
Yeah.
look, I still remember it years later.
It's huge. What's your favorite thing about the business?
getting to go to lunch every day. I mean, how many jobs can you take a 2-hour lunch? No, I'm kidding. What's the best part? Having written by myself for 33 years, basically, getting to work with such super talented people
Yeah.
who are kind of, a lot of them are just kind of like-minded or just like fellow, ridiculous people.
Yeah.
And forging genuine friendships. There's some great people in our industry.
Incredible people.
And I do enjoy helping people out and doing stuff. And I enjoy, I'll tell you what never gets old is driving or being at a CVS, Walgreens, or a store and hearing one of your songs on the radio.
Yeah.
Never gets old. Or playing a show and seeing random people in the audience singing along to a song you wrote on your bed in a 300 square foot apartment in New York City about your ex-girlfriend.
It's the best.
It's freaking awesome.
It's the best.
So, yeah, I mean, there's, it's nice.
Do you know, and that's a very famous song, I happen to know, I've heard it, and heard you tell the story of, I wrote this song in a 300 square foot apartment, and you strum the first 2 chords, and I've watched an entire, concert hall full of people just go bananas because this song is a part of their lives. Do you know when you've written a hit song, do you think you
No, okay,
have that feeling?
No, I do not. I do not, but I will say this. The first time I ever played that song live, I played a concert on my birthday, and we went right into it. There was a song that was on my album, and we went right, because it ended on the C chord, and we went right into it. And I had that cello part and went into it, and I felt an energy rise up at the bitter end. And before I even sang that first note, I was like, something special is going on here. And when I kicked in that chorus, I'm like, this is good. And I'll never forget, also, one night at my friend's restaurant, we were all passing guitars around. And I had just written the song for the girl I was dating, and I'd never played it for anyone. And I was watching everyone play, and then the owner of the restaurant's like, Jeff, can you just do one? And I'm like, I don't really play, but says BMI guy. So I played this song, and I watched these 3 artists, 2 of which went on to be signed and pretty well known.
Yes.
They were just like, I watched their faces, and they were like, and one of them was like, did you write that? And I'm like, yeah, I wrote it a few nights ago. And and I was like, oh, that's good. That song ended up being the ending biggest scene in Dawson's Creek and was in another movie and 4 TV shows years later. I didn't know that.
You didn't know it at the time, but it's that feeling
No,
of...
I didn't know it at the time. Let me tell you right now, if Big and Rich had not demoed Holy Water, that would be on a cassette in my storage unit right now, and nobody would have ever heard that song. I would love to just, and I should do this, there's no reason not to, just take a month, go into my storage, get all those cassettes, and spend hours every day looking at some of my old ideas, because there are some songs that I wrote back then, either by myself or co-writes, before I had my Pro Tools, before I had an engineer, before we did these full demos. They were work tapes on a cassette. And there's a great chance that a lot of those songs in there that were never heard, there's got to be a few gems.